settling, coming into the space, softening. And the next inhale, inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, inhale, and just continuing just samavritti. If you would like, instead of counting, you could also introduce a mantra if you would like. Sometimes I like to use Om Mani Padme Hum, and I use that to keep my rhythm as I inhale, hold, exhale, hold. You may find that as you continue the cycle that you may want to, on the exhale, just like push out a little, because sometimes the breath can get a bit stuck. So if you feel like on the exhale you need to just push out a little, that's totally okay. Pass it on to Ruben now to begin our class.
Thanks, Luca. Welcome, yogis. Just going to invite everybody to close down the eyes, and we're going to open up this cycle with 3 resonant arms. And so we're going to breathe in to clear the breath out. And breathing in from We're going to make our way down through. I hope everybody would have a bolster, but it's okay. We're just going to do butterfly pose. So come down to your backs, feet together, knees resting in a relaxed position. Our knees aren't going to be trying to get to the floor. This is a restorative pose. Releasing the tension, connecting to your breath, and sinking into the mat. The intention for today is freedom. Freedom from the stress of the week that was. Freedom from the emotions that have been governing your body. Freedom from having to be anywhere else other than here. While you're breathing deeply, connecting to your heart, I'm going to share a little story. It's called the Wise Woman's Stone. A wise woman was traveling through the mountains, and she was walking by a stream, and she looks down and sees a precious stone. She picks up the stone and she puts it in her bag. A few days later, she runs into a hungry traveler. The wise woman sits him down, opens up her bag to give him some food. The hungry traveler looks inside the bag and sees the precious stone. He says to the wise woman, "Give me the stone." The wise woman does. She gives it to him immediately without hesitation. The hungry traveler rejoices in his good fortune. He realizes this stone is so valuable that it's going to give him security for the rest of his life. And he hurries along. A few days later, he returns to the wise woman. "I've been thinking," he said. "I know how valuable the stone is, but I give it back in the hope that you can give me something even more precious. Please give me what you have within you that enabled you to give me the stone in the first place." The freest person is the one with the least amount of resistance to what's happening in this moment. Before we move on to our next pose, I want you to think about something that you can let go of in this moment that's going to allow you to be a little bit freer. For me, it's about letting go of expectations with how other people behave, letting go of what I think they should or shouldn't be doing, and wholeheartedly accepting people for the way they are. As we embark on this journey through the festive season, there's a famous saying, and if you think you're enlightened, go home for Christmas. go home for Christmas, I'm going to be accepting each and every one of my family members wholeheartedly. When you're ready, I want you to come back up and we're going to meet in child's pose. It's important to make sure that your forehead is connected to the ground, supporting your neck, reaching your hands out in front, pushing down into the earth. Your hands might be resting beside you, and that's okay as well. And your bottom reaching back into your heels, elongating your spine, connecting to your breath. And just taking a moment just to arrive in this space. With each breath, relaxing into your body, landing on the earth, and feeling the beautiful restorative energy this pose offers. And ever so slowly, crawl to the left with your right hands stretching out outside, reaching over, having your right hand on top of the left, just to maximize the stretch. Breathing into your ribs, into your hips, and opening up inside. We're going to stay here for 3 breaths. Ever so softly, ever so gently creeping back to the center and making your way to the other side. If you haven't done so already, begin to lengthen your breath. Expanding your chest. Breathing into your belly. And gently releasing that. Exhaling. And save 2 more breaths. And slowly come back, and we're going to meet in the tabletop position. Hands underneath your shoulders, spreading your fingers, pushing down into the earth. And we're going to do a few cat cows. So in your own time, breathing in and breathing out. From the spine, chin to chest. Breathe in. Looking up. And coming back. We're going to do 2 more. And when you come back, we're going to start circling the hips and just opening up the body. Stay connected to your breath. And once you've done a few circles in one direction, swap it around to even it out. And then we come back up to the tabletop. We're going to raise the right hand into the sky. Breathe in, and we're going to thread it through as we exhale. Inhaling, coming back up to the sky. And threading it back through. One more. And coming back up to the other side. And raise the left hand into the sky, inhale. And threading it through. So, coming back up. Last one. Breathe in. And exhale. As we come back up nice and slowly. Sitting in Caesar. As you make your way to Caesar, we're just going to slowly rock forward and back just to warm up the spine, getting ready for camel pose. Each time, just come back a little bit more. Be incredibly gentle with yourself. And preparing for camel. So we're going to reach our hands to the back of our ankles. Open up our chest. Looking up into the sky. Connected to your breath. And then slowly bringing your hips forward. Opening. We're going to stay here for 3 breaths. And very gently come back. When we leave the child's pose, just a little rebound. After you've exhaled, you're going to meet in downward facing dog. When you're ready, slowly pedal out the legs, stretching your calves. Remember pushing down into your tailbone to the sky, lengthen your back. And then coming into bridge pose. Toes together, looking forward, and we're going to step or jump to the top of the mat. Breathing in, halfway lift. And exhale, forward fold. Breathing in, raising your arms up into the sky. Prayer position. And exhale, forward fold. As we breathe in, coming up to Tadasana. Feet rooted into the earth. Hands out wide. And connecting to your breath. As I am going to be handing you over.
Here in Tadasana, we're gonna ground the feet into the mat. Rotate the shoulders, lift the crown of the head. Take a big deep breath here. Release it through the mouth. We're gonna go into a few sun salutations to warm up the body and adding on every time. Connecting to your breath. When you're ready, lift the hands up to the sky, inhale. Exhale, we're going to interlace the fingers, lift the palms up to the sky and tilt to the right hand side. Inhale here, and exhale, we're going to go a bit deeper, stretch the side body. Inhale back to center. And we're going to go exhaling to the other side. Every exhalation, try to find a bit more space. Inhaling back to center. And we're going to fold down to the earth, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift, hands to chin. Exhale, bend the hands, step back to high plank. Inhale in your high plank. Exhale, go down to the earth, chaturanga. Inhale, cobra to start with. And exhale, push back to downward facing dog. Taking a big deep breath here. Releasing through the mouth. With your next inhale, we're going to take the right leg up. Exhale, we're going to flip the foot in between the hands. Lower the back knee. And inhale, lift the arms up, low lunge. And then exhale here to deepen into a low lunge. Making sure our knees above the ankle, lift or square, hips or square. Inhale here, exhale to deepen into the low lunge. The next inhale, we're going to interlace the fingers again. Flip the palms up and tilt to the right side of the body. If you want a bigger stretch, maybe take your hands, your right hand to the mat and your left hand to the side, or use a block as well. Inhale to rotate the shoulder a bit more, the left shoulder a bit more, shining hard. Exhale to deepen in the stretch. When you're ready, you're going to place back the hands down and come back to high plank. Inhale. Exhale, go back down to the earth. Inhale, shine your heart to cobra or dog if you're ready. Exhale, and push back to our downward facing dog. One breath here. Let's go to the other side with next inhale. Lift the leg up, three-legged dog. Exhale. Place the foot in between the hands, lower the back knee, and let's raise the arms. Inhaling to a low lunge, making sure the spine is straight, crown of the head lifting up. Exhaling, deepening into the pose. Let's interlace the fingers, flip the palms, and let's stretch to the left hand side. So, again, if you'd like a bigger stretch, you can take your hand to the mat, and really like we're trying to rotate the shoulder up, looking up to the sky, inhaling, exhaling, to find a bit of space here in the heart area. When you're ready, you're going to press back the hands down. Come back, inhaling to high plank. Going, we will flow down here, chaturanga. Cobra or up dog. With right knee closing and pushing down to downward facing dog. 3, breath here. Connecting to your breath. Maybe activating Jai breath. So inhaling, exhaling through the nose with a slight constriction of the throat. Pushing the ground away with the fingertips. When you're ready, we're going to go into our next flow. Inhale, lift the right leg up. Exhale, bend the knee, open the hip. From here, if you like, you can take a few circles with the knee. Big or small, connect with your body. See what you need in this area. Don't forget to breathe here. Inhaling back to three-legged dog, squaring the hips. Exhaling with the foot in between the hands. This time we're going to inhale up to high lunge and deepening into a high lunge with the exhalation. Inhale to lengthen and exhale to deepen, making sure the knees over the ankle, the back leg is straight, rotate the shoulders. For your next inhale, we're going to take your hands to the heart center and we're going to shift the body weight forward and tilt and to the right. To the right. So making sure your left elbow is over the outside of your right knee, making sure your back knee is lifted, strong, looking up to the sky. Rotate the shoulders away from the ears. Last breath here. And when you're ready, let's put back the hands back down. Going back to high plank. If you'd like to take a flow, you're more than welcome to. And we're going to meet back to downward facing dog. One breath here. Connecting to your intention of the day. Freedom, freeing up a bit of space in the body, noticing where you have tension and breathing into that area. With your next inhale, we're going to lift the leg layer, bend the knee, open the hips for the next inspiration. And again, you can take a few rounds, big or small, with your knee to rinse out The hip area should feel really good. When you're ready, let's meet back to three-legged dog. With the left leg up, and we're going to plant the foot in between the hands. Inhale, arms up to the sky, and exhale, we're going to deepening into the pose, making sure the hips are squared, looking straight, strong. Take an inhale here and exhale. If you want to release to the mouth as well. The next inhale, we're going to take the hands to heart center, shifting the body weight forward, and we're going to take the right elbow to the outer edge of the left knee, taking the shoulders away from the ears, looking behind you if you can, opening up your arms if that's available to you, stacking the shoulders. One last breath here. When you're ready, let's come back to high plank. So we're going to inhale. And we can go down to a full Yoga dog. Exhaling to your downward dog. One deep breath here, releasing the tension. Pedaling your feet if that feels good as well. Pushing the ground away, spine is straight, look up to your navel. And we're going to walk the hands to the feet. Walk the hands to the feet, we are on forward fold. Slight bend in the knee, feet hip width apart. And if it's comfortable, you can maybe interlace the fingers again and place the palms over your neck for a bigger stretch, and the elbows pointing and pulling towards each other. And we can swing left and right. Should feel really good for the lower back. Taking really pause in our flow here. Breathing in and out, connecting to your breath. When you're ready, we'll walk the hands back to the top of the mat in or downward facing dog. If you'd like to take a flow, I invite you to, otherwise we'll just be back in downward dog. And breathe here. When you're ready with the next inhale, we're going to lift the right leg up. Exhale, we're going to flip the foot in between the hands. And this time, we are in our reversal. So if that feels good for the hips, you can also balance forward, backward. And this time, I'm going to open up the pose to warrior two. So we want to ground the back foot parallel to the short edge of the mat. Windmill the hands up and make sure that you have the alignment between your heel with the arch of the foot, the back foot. The hips are squared as well, rotate the shoulders, look straight up. And we're gonna, with the next inhale, we're gonna flip the palm up, reach forwards, and reverse, so warrior. So the lower body remains exactly how it is. And the left hand can reach wherever it reaches on the leg. Really rotate your shoulder to the sky so you're not crunched in the pose. A big breath here. Every exhalation, try to maybe twist a little bit more. And when you're ready, we're just going to come back to the mat. Inhaling again to high plank. If you push, take another flow. Coming down to Freeing up the body of any tension, holding the feet, releasing the breath. With the next inhale, let's take the left foot up, three-legged dog. And let's plant it into in between our hands. Runner's lunge. Same here if you'd like to take a bit of walking forwards and backwards through this articulate area. And when you're ready, you next inhale, then open up to warrior two. So making sure the knees over the ankle, both feet are planted firm into the ground, and rotating the shoulders, looking forward. We are strong in the warriors. Hips are squared. Breathing into the upper body. And we're going to flip the hand, reach forward as someone is pulling you, and reverse the warrior. Breathing into the side body here. Looking up. Rotating the shoulder a little bit more. And when you're ready, we'll come back to our warrior two. And our right foot is going to meet the left one in Tadasana, mountain pose. And I'm going to hand you over to Anusha.
Thank you, Lee. Coming back into our warrior two that we were just in, with our left foot pointing forward and our right foot parallel to the back of the mat. Let's now come into an extended side angle by either placing your left elbow on your left thigh and your right hand pointing up to the sky, or if it's available to you, placing your hand next to your left foot and making sure that your chest is shining up, keeping it nice and open. And then staying here for a couple of breaths before we come back into our warrior two. And next we're going to come into a tree pose. Let's meet at the front of the mat into Tadasana, and placing your right foot on either underneath or above the knee, but never on it, and focusing on your drishti to then come into either prayer pose above your head, or keeping your arms wide open if that's what you need today. From here, we're going to go into eagle pose. We'll try and smoothly flow into the pose, but if you need to come out of it, that's fine too. So placing your right foot behind your left shin, or just simply keeping your right knee above your left knee if that's not available to you, and then right elbow underneath the left, bringing your elbows up to shoulder height. Again, focusing on your drishti, staying here for a second. If you come out of the pose, just taking a second and then coming straight back into it.
now we're going to try to go into hand to big toe pose directly, but if you need to come out and shake off, that's fine too. So bringing your right knee to your chest, giving it a nice squeeze, and then getting your, if you have a strap, that can help in this as well, but otherwise going for your right toe and then bringing it forward, trying and straightening it out as much as possible, and then slowly opening up to the right while using your left hand to balance out. And bringing your foot back to the center, and then swapping over to your left hand and going to the left, using your right hand to balance it out again. If you need to come out of it, that's totally fine. You are free to do so. Alright, and then coming back to the center and squeezing your knee, coming back down, shaking it out. Now we're gonna go into dancer's pose on the same side. So staying for a second in Tadasana, then keeping your torso upright, but bringing your right foot and up to the bum and holding onto the outside of your right foot with your right hand. Slowly inhale and lifting your knee up while bringing your left hand either to chest height or above and shining your chest upwards again and lowering your torso slightly. Stay here for 2 more breaths. Try and bring your foot up as much as you can to the ceiling. And releasing from the pose. And we'll do the other side. So bringing your left foot back to come into warrior 2 on the other side. And coming into extended side angle by bringing your right elbow to the top of your right thigh, or if it's available to you, using a block or straight to the ground with your right palm. Opening your chest up, pointing your left hand to the back of the room, front of the room. And now we'll come back out of it into warrior 2 again, meeting in the front of the mat for Tadasana before we head into our tree pose on the other side. So bringing your left foot to either the top or under the right knee, and prayer above your head, or keeping your arms wide open, whichever is required. And we'll flow into eagle pose directly from here, but if you need to come out of the pose to reset, do that too. So either placing your left knee above your right, or if you can do the full bind, going for the full bind, and left elbow underneath the right, keeping your elbows at shoulder height, maintaining your drishti helps a lot. And we'll go straight out of this pose into the next if that's available. So bringing your left knee to your chest, giving it a big squeeze before grasping onto the left big toe, bringing it forward, straightening out your leg, and trying our best to keep the integrity on the standing leg, making sure that there's even distribution through all three corners of your foot in the Baddha Bandha. And then bringing our left foot more to the left and balancing it out by stretching our right hand out. And swapping over your hands to give a little bit of a stretch on the other side. And coming back out of the pose into our Tadasana, giving your shins a little bit of a shake. And we'll go into dancer's pose on the same side. So bringing your left foot up to your hand, grasping on the outside. Inhale, bringing your left knee up and right hand up, either to chest height or above. Maintaining integrity in your core, strong standing leg. Bringing your left foot up as much as possible while maintaining the integrity of the pose. One more breath. And meeting in Tadasana. Thank you. I'll give it over to Lena.
Nikki, maybe you want to silence the yoga warriors just until maybe the OMS so it doesn't collapse. Can you hear me well?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, let's just go to the front of our mats. Yeah, get a sip of water if you need to. We're coming to final rebounds that we were all waiting for in this really, really warm day. Let's meet all up in the front of our mats on our mountain pose or Tadasana. Closing down our eyes. Really feeling that grounding of our foot on the floor, our crown connecting to heaven, to the sky, to the supreme consciousness. Maybe, yes, moving your feet, giving your toes a little wiggle, your fingers. And very slowly with a deep inhale, bringing your arms up to the sky with your hands in prayer, looking up, maybe a little bit of a back bend. And slowly exhaling and bowing forwards. Releasing all the tension, letting your head fall heavy. Maybe grabbing your elbows or using your peace fingers, grabbing your toes. And maybe feeling a little bit more like a gorilla tonight or today. Putting the palms of your hands together with the soles of your feet. Just let yourself hang. Feel that freedom. Feel everything that was gained today during our practice. And then the next inhale, really lengthening our spine on a halfway lift. Stretching forwards that head. On an exhale, let yourself fall again. Inhale, look up, and on your exhale, coming into a plank pose. Drop your knees down. Slowly shifting your weight forwards into your cobra. Beautiful. Exhale, bringing all the way down. The forehead is on the mat. Release your hands to the front of your mat. Really stretch forwards. Let everything go. Feel your shins, your belly. Surrender to the mat. Pushing your hands, coming into a child's pose. Surrender your belly, your torso to the thighs. Pushing your buttocks towards your heels. Releasing those shoulders. Releasing your head. Maybe bringing a little smile now that no one is looking. Enjoying this peaceful moment. And slowly coming onto our knees on an upright position, vertebra by vertebra, slowly coming up. And finding your seated position, comfortable seated position. We're going to explore below my breathing pranayama, just to bring that calmness and that restful feeling back to our body in this very warm day. So closing down your eyes, I'll invite you to take 2-3 natural breath cycles. It's better if you're in a sitting, the Sukhasana pose, because we're going to be a couple of minutes here. So just for your knees, be mindful of that. Closing down your eyes. We're going to be inhaling for 3, holding for 3, inhaling for 3, holding for 3, inhaling for 3, holding for 5, and then exhaling for 10. Okay? I'll guide you for the first couple of rounds and then you can continue on your own rhythm. Releasing your current breath. Inhale, 2, 3, hold, 2, 3, in, 2, 3, hold, 2, 3, in, 2, 3, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale for 10, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Inhale for 3, 2, 3. In for 3, 2, 3. Hold 3, 2, 3. In 3. Hold for 3, 2, 3. Exhale for 10. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. In 3, 2. Hold 2, 3. In 2, 3. Hold 2, 3, 4, 5. Out 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. In 2, 3. Hold 2, 3. In 2, 3. Hold 2, 3. In 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Just do 2 more rounds. So in 3, hold 3. And then your last hold is for 5 and your exhale is for 10. Viloma means against the waves. So it's an interrupted breathing technique. Gives us further lung capacity, brings calm and rest, feeling to our body. On your next round, when you finish your next exhalation, just take one very restorative, deep Inhale and exhale, ha. And slowly make your way to Shavasana, lying onto your backs. Let your body fall heavy. Let your feet fall heavy to the sides. Give some space to your armpits to breathe, separating your arms from your body. And I'll invite you now to be guided by my voice and bringing the awareness to the part of the body that I will name. We'll breathe into that part of the body and then bring that breath to the top of our crown. And then on our exhale, we'll be from the top of our crown to that part of the body. Make some little adjustments. So for the rest of the practice, you're lying still or with minimal movements. Surrender your body to the mat. Maybe wheel your head a little bit just to adjust your neck. There is no tension in your jaw. Release your eyebrows. Release your mouth, maybe opening it a little bit. Just release any tension with your teeth. Imagine, visualize a white light flowing through your body while we're inhaling from your left toes to the top of your crown. Deep inhale and exhale from the top of the crown to your left toes. Inhale from your left ankle to the top of the crown. Exhale from the top of the crown to your left ankles. Inhaling from your left shins to the top of the crown. Exhale from the top of the crown to your left shin. Inhale from your left knees to the top of the crown. Exhale from the top of the crown to your left knee. Inhale from your left hip to the top of the crown. Exhale from the top of the crown to your left hip. Your hip is relaxed. Inhale from the left fingertips to the top of the crown. Exhale from the top of your crown to your left fingertips. Inhale from your left wrist to the top of the crown. Exhale from the top of the crown to your left wrist. Your hand is relaxed. Inhale from your left elbow to the top of the crown. Exhale from the top of the crown to your left elbow. Inhale from the left shoulder to the top of the crown. Exhale from the top of the crown to your left elbow. Your left side is relaxed. Inhaling now from the top of the right toes to the top of the crown. Exhale from the top of the crown to your right toes. Inhale from your right ankle to the top of the crown. Exhaling from the crown to the top of your ankle. Inhale from the chin, right shin to the top of the crown. Exhale from the top of the crown to your right shin. Inhale from your right knees to the top of the crown. Exhaling from the top of the crown to your right knee. Inhaling from your right hip to the top of the crown. Exhale from the top of the crown to the right hip. Your right hip is relaxed. Your whole bottom body is relaxed. Relax your glutes. Relax the quads. Inhaling from the right fingertips to the top of the crown. Exhaling from the crown to the top of the right fingertips. Inhale from your right wrist to the top of the crown. Exhale from the crown to the right wrist. Inhale from your right elbow to the top of the crown, and from the crown to your right elbow. Inhale from the right shoulder to the top of the crown, exhaling from the crown to your right shoulder. Your right side body is completely relaxed. Bringing your awareness to your heart center, inhaling from your heart to the top of the crown, exhale from the top of the crown to your heart center. Feeling the prana, feeling that energy, concentrating in your heart center. Inhaling from your heart center to the top of the crown. Exhaling from the crown to your heart center. Slowly start to release your neck, your throat. Let everything go. Coming back to our intention of freedom, visualizing all the beautiful light that we brought in our body from the top of our crown, renewing the energy, creating space, letting go of any mental bindings that we might have, letting go of any physical limitations we might feel today. And ultimately, let go of letting go. When you feel ready, maybe slowly start to wiggle your feet, coming back to your mat. Moving your neck, maybe your head, bringing your arms up overhead and stretching it out if that's what it feels like doing. Maybe hugging your knees to the chest. Slowly, very mindful, very gentle. Shifting your weight towards the left, to the heart side. And slowly coming back to your sitting position whenever you're ready. Keeping your eyes closed. Bringing your hands in Chin Mudra. This is the tip of the index finger under the tip of the thumb. And we're keeping it to our inside, our consciousness. So Chin comes from Chitta, comes from consciousness. And by doing these, we are uniting our individual consciousness with the universal consciousness. And we're keeping the ego, the illusions, and the karma out of this beautiful connection within ourselves. Bringing your palms down, facing your thighs. And really feeling that connection within yourself, that connection with the universal soul, letting go, of letting go, of letting go. We're going to seal this practice with 3 Oms. So releasing your current breath, take a deep inhale, release. On your next inhale, we're going to on Om. Inhale. Om. 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 The light in me acknowledges, sees, and feels the light in each and every one of you. Namaste. I can't hear you.
Couldn't hear our arms, could you? The whole room almost lifted off without wings.
Oh.
That was such a nice nidra. Thank you, Renata. Beautiful nidra. Into another place there. Getting the picture. Ruben, how did you go, brother?
Yeah, well, thanks to Lydia, just holding space and getting us ready. I think for us, Sam has her work and then fighting traffic, and just to step into that and be able to just connect to the calmness was really nice. And I suppose I'll tell a little story for us. So the Navy SEALs, when they finish their training, when they graduate, there's this speech and it talks about how in society we celebrate mediocrity and these men detest mediocrity. And that's something that really resonates with me. However, I feel like I'm still mediocre. But you have to start somewhere, and I'm all about that courage work mindset, that growth mindset. This is how I'm going to get to the point where I'm really comfortable and confident in teaching and helping everybody with their practice. And so I always just give myself a pat on the back for showing up, and that's what means something to me. And I think it's important to play your strengths. And I was trying to get Sam to read out that story in the car, but she can't read stuff, but she gets cussy. I'm like,
We did it at the live.
yeah, I'm just like, so just going over rehearsing, I was just like, I have one shot here. And, but yeah, we got it, and I was able to share it, and it's a story that means so much to me. I'm kind of trying to live my life by that story. And then the rest is just going through into the poses. So you're in class yesterday, and just stealing like all the grooves. And so, yeah, it was nice just to get through it. And, I feel like as long as we just let everybody relax and just really connect with being in this space, I feel like this space does so much for me, where I'm just, just a conduit to just channel this energy that is already here. And so, yeah, just piggybacking off this space. But it's great. This is, out of my comfort zone. This is, putting your hand in the fire, and that's how you forge a beautiful story.
It's like quote after
Did you rehearse your own thing?
I should work more on poses.
So beautifully said. Yeah, so beautifully said.
I don't know if anyone else can give you feedback after that.
Yeah.
But do you, as challenging as it is, do you enjoy it?
Yeah, very much so. It's one of those things where I've never regretted doing a yoga class, as hard as it is. And what I find in either a beginner's yoga class or doing yoga teacher training is because we're breaking everything down, it's almost harder in a way because we're holding poses for a lot longer. And so just that fire that we throw ourselves in, like, not that I'm a masochist, but I always enjoy that rest after I've been in a really hard situation. But you don't get to rest and enjoy it unless you've had that contrast. So yeah, I love it.
Embracing duality. Okay?
Yeah.
For sure.
Anyone have any comments from you?
Only that I really liked the story. My first thought was like, I hope the story's not going to be too long. And then you had like just very short parts of the story, because when you went from the lady found the stone, and then a couple of days later, I was like, oh, it's going to be one like that. That's perfect. Yeah, just with the highlights.
Yeah.
It's great, and the teaching out of it was really nice. I might actually bring it into yoga tonight and crunch it. Yeah.
I'll send it to you guys. I'll post it. Yeah.
Cool. It's lovely.
That really resonated with storytelling. So that was a beautiful
Yeah, I really like your intention and how you said, oh, this Christmas you'll forgive and accept them for who they are as they are. That was beautiful.
It's a big one for all of us.
Yeah, I think the story resonated well with me as well. I think you're being hard on yourself because I felt that was really good, and I felt you were very comfortable as well in that. So yeah, I didn't think you were in that mediocre state at all.
It's so kind to say that. Sam and I just keep harping on about how we feel this is a really strong group for the teacher training. I'm sure Vicky would know as well that it's, got really strong groups and uppers and I think, but it's also indicative of how strong everyone's practices here. And so I guess, just not that you compare. But I'm aware of who's how amazing everybody is.
But as you said, the collective strength.
Yeah, for sure. And it's good to have a really high standard. I think that's how we get better.
I love starting with an album as well. Like I really need that. Just to start with the album is so powerful all the time. To connect with everyone as well. And that was really nice. The whole thing was beautiful.
Thank you. Sam and I will always see you can do the album. Yeah. How obnoxious can you be with your album? And it comes in handy when you're doing it in front of a large group because you've got to carry and project things.
Can you guys hear all right online?
Yes, I'm chatting with Mel. She's trying to get in. She missed the flow. I'm not sure, Mickey, if Mel appears as wanted to come in the conversation, the Zoom meeting.
Oh, I haven't seen her.
I think it's a new link.
She must have the old link.
I just sent her the one that I used to come in, but yeah, if you see her, just let her in. Yeah.
If anyone else sees her, let me know.
Yep. I do hear, but it's a little bit like, it's difficult, but that's fine.
Yeah, I figured from the other end of the room it might be a bit challenging, but.
Yeah.
Aurelie, how did you go?
Yeah, I think it was alright. I think it was alright. I wanted to incorporate more like bendas and talk a bit of the chakra as well in some positions, but it's Yeah, I think it would. I'm trying to look at people now, and like try to kind of give cues where I see that, because I can't see myself, but so I see people, so I'm like, oh, this. So I'm trying to give cues like this. So I was trying to be more aware of giving cues if I saw some things. But yeah, I think overall we were right. I would incorporate more trend as an example.
I loved your flow.
Oh,
I was going to say the same thing. Yeah. Get really throughout the heat.
Yeah, I was a bit aware of that as well. I was trying to not bring it too much, but yeah.
Yeah, your flow was the start of me being rinsed out. The only thing I want to say is that you mind your vocabulary.
Yeah.
If you change up your vocabulary too much, there's confusion.
Oh yeah.
As you said, flip your foot to the front of the mat, for example.
Oh
But
right.
when you're in three-legged dog,
Yeah.
most teachers use flip in order to flip your
Oh
dog,
sorry. Okay.
for example.
Sorry.
But yeah. What's the word? Can't find the word. Like kind of like monotonous, but find the same language throughout.
Yeah.
Consistent language.
Yeah, I think it's because my English is my second language, so I like have a few words I use, but sometimes I mix them up. So even like feet or foot, I always get confused. And I'm like, should I say feet or should I say foot? I'm saying the same thing. I hope like people will understand. So, but it's true. Yeah, because flipping introducing would be like one thing, and then would be something else different. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, good point, both of you.
Yeah.
But as far as foot to feet,
Yeah.
they don't work so much, and like you said, it's a second language, so it's and people quite enjoy that accent and and the not so dirty English, because we realise you're French, but it's quite nice. It's actually it sounds nice. So the imperfection there is cute. It's lovely. So don't worry about that. But Keva had a good point. Just sometimes the cues, just making sure that the words are aligned to what we're exactly doing.
Yeah.
You don't have to be French to get that wrong. Everyone else does that too. But it was interesting because you did say the right way a few times, and then you said flip sometimes, and then other times you said step or base your foot to the top, which is what we're looking for. I would have liked to see you do Surya. Like I would like in this class, and this is just a reminder for everyone, that I always want to see Surya done by someone, just because that's our foundation. Like when you go out and teach your own classes, you can do whatever you like. But for now, I just want to see that consistently being done, because that's the foundation we build upon from. So me too, I really thought the flow was beautiful, I really enjoyed it, it's lovely. But I would have liked to see the later first. Who was after you? I wish I had to go.
Actually, it was quite imperfect. I think I'm not very good at doing multiple things at once, as of the last couple of weeks, and I found that there were cues that I had in my mind that have completely slipped off my mind, and completely forgot about the karamas with one of the balancing poses, and also it was a lot easier at home where it was a lot cooler and we weren't as warm as we were after the clothes. So I was like panicking a little bit, going, should I leave things out? And I'm like, what do I put in instead? And I just shut down a little bit, so it was a bit mediocre.
I liked that you took balancing to the next level. It was challenging. It was definitely challenging, but I really liked it. I think I liked orally we already built the heap already, so it's like, alright, let's do this. So I liked it, but I think my ankles got not really like sore, and I think that's just very natural. So maybe like doing some ankle rolls before, allowing I know you did allow us to step down if we needed to. I was just like, I'm gonna keep going, but I think maybe afterwards as well, just doing some ankle rolls and just slowly moving the feet, because I was like, oh my gosh. Yeah, but I really liked, I always like when the balancing is in a flow as well, so I enjoyed that, but it was challenging, but I think it's something I want to try and work on in my personal practice. Yeah.
Yeah, I've never tried upright W. Don't practice the other side, or the leg over. So it's really good. I'll bring that into my practice.
I was trying to find a common theme between Ruben's and Orly's, bends and I feel like maybe I added something completely different that didn't fit in in hindsight, but I don't,
No,
I thought it was really good. In terms of fitting as well.
Yeah.
It was challenging, but it's fun to challenge. It's one of those challenges where you challenge yourself, but there's not really the risk of falling on your face. Just step your foot back up. Make that available to everyone as well. Kept reminding us, you can step out and then come back into it.
There's so much calm in your voice as well. That really resonates and comes across. So that was really nice.
good, that's how it comes through.
I think as well, when you're taking us all to our limits, how we can step out, have a little rest and shake it out, but we can keep going as well. Those different cues was so good, and it can't be mediocre when we're all just red line. It's I think that's such a good thing, and it just shows that this is again a depth to it. Who would have thought standing on foot for an extended period of time could just produce so much fire. But it's your voice is super calm. That's what you want. You're taking people to that place within themselves. So
No, I thought it was great, really good sequence, like everyone else said. It was interesting. Today I made sure to check the timing, and so you first two guys were kind of spot on in 15 minutes. You were 10 minutes, so. And then Renata was a bit over, I didn't quite check, but you were, I think, a little
No, I was checking. I had a chronometer here, so at 14, everyone should have been in Sukhasana. Hey?
Okay, so
Just be underlined.
take that back. But what I was
Maybe the arms were over.
maybe just but what I was going to say was we had, you had potentially another 5 minutes where you could have done. So what was kind of missing in that class was a bit of the floor work, with the back bend, the forward bend, the twist. I mean, technically that's all been done somewhere. Ruben did the back bend at the start. You get your back bends in your vinyasa as well. Lauren's flow, and she did some twists there as well, and forward bends. So it is all there. It's not like it's religiously that you have to do your floor work as well. However, generally speaking, that's a nice way to do things. So you could have, there was that time that you could have walked into the floor and done a couple of those things. So that was my own suggestion.
I just wanted to say for everyone, it would be cool if the 15-minute block, if you kind of think about any props that people might need, and then we can grab them at the beginning, because a lot of the teachers, all of us, were like, oh, if you have a strap nearby, but that we don't have a strap. If you're saying do you have a strap nearby, then it would be good to say get a strap at the beginning of the class.
That's a really good point, and that's if you when you're teaching the class out in the world, if you know what you're going to be teaching and you know that you need certain props, and you'll say that at the start of the class. Everyone's got the strap for this class, got the block.
Yeah. Unless we just get everything at the beginning in case we need it. But yeah, that's another option.
And Renata, how did you go?
I'm so sorry about the pranayama. I sent a photograph of a red ant that apparently today I landed the mat on a new red ant colony that I only saw once I was eaten by them. And that was exactly when I started the Viloma, and then I completely lost it because I don't know. I sent the picture of the little bastard that did it, but okay. So apart from that, the Viloma was a disaster. I'm sorry about that. I couldn't get over the pain, and then I got it back a little bit, and then I was like, yeah, let's move on from the pranayama into the shavasana. I couldn't get over the pain. So
it wasn't an absolute disaster. It was still, you know, pretty good guidance. I was gonna bring it up that, you know, you missed a couple of.
Yes, it was.
A couple of those birds or whatever, but.
I completely lost it. So sorry about that.
There you go. Some people didn't even notice.
You came back to it with the last two rounds you ran.
Yes.
That's where you found the metronome, and that's where you left us off, and that was perfect.
I had this one with coconut water and ice. Then I saw it and I just put it on my foot, and it was like, just breathe in and out and then start again.
Yeah.
So, and apart from that, I didn't mention that it was going to be 34 degrees today. So I kind of changed I saw that everyone was a little bit stressed with the warmth and drinking water and stuff. So I removed pretty much all the asanas and brought in, thank you, Mickey, for calling it a yoga nidra, but that's something that I wrote, and I wasn't sure if I should have said, now the practice of yoga nidra begins, because I wasn't sure if it was exactly a yoga nidra or if it was within the standards of the yoga nidra. But it's something that really flowed in me, and I wrote it down, and I thought, okay, if I'm not doing all these poses, I'll just bring it up in the class, and I didn't read it, which was good. But yeah, I felt good with the yoga nidra part. I liked sharing that with you guys.
It was wonderful yoga nidra, it really was. Well done. Really enjoyed that.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, just with the yoga nidra, Sam's, not doing it at the moment, but she would go to sleep listening to it, so inevitably I have to listen to it. And when you started, just with the toe, the first thought was, oh, here we go. Like,
Yes, me the whole body.
yeah, but once I just surrendered to it and just let your voice carry me, by the time we finished, I was so blissed out. And so I feel like I'm qualified to share that it's a really good yoga nidra since I listen to it every night. So well done.
Thank you.
I agree, it was a wonderful yoga nidra, I thought. Sent me to a really nice place too. Well done everyone, good work. So round of applause. Last class for the year. So we'll have our lunch break, and today our lecture's on the mind, and we've already looked at the mind to some degree when we looked at Patanjali, Yoga Sutras. We looked at Patanjali's aspect of the mind, of chitta, really. Today there is a lecture notes on mind and breath, so we'll have a bit of a look through that. And so it's kind of, that's a little bit more about obviously the connection of the mind and the breath. But try not to dwell on that too long. I'd like to also, I've got a really beautiful book called it's a meditation book, Mind and Meditation maybe? Not sure, I can't remember the name, I've got it in my bag anyway. But it's a book by a guy called Kuladasana, I think his name is. And he's like a Buddhist, but also he's got that psychotherapist aspect as well. So it's looking at the mind from maybe a more psychotherapist point of view, but also with that Buddhism sensibility as well. So I thought we could have a bit of a look at that. And then if we've got time, a special little gift to you guys. Well, for me it's a gift, hopefully it's a gift to you. Sharing a little satsang from my teacher Eric. So some of you have heard about my teacher Eric, who is my, let's say, Advaita Vedanta teacher who lives in India. And he sends me, we're on a chat on WhatsApp, and he sends me constantly these lectures on Vedanta, and or whatever you want to call it, these talks. And so he sent me one the other day, and I started listening to it. I haven't listened to the whole thing. It's just it's a shorter one, not really quite long. But it's a half an hour one, and I thought it was really sweet. It kind of sums up a lot of what we're doing in yoga practice really beautifully. I thought it could be a nice way to round things off for the year. So that's the plan. So it's 1:54. Can we be back? Let's say at 10 to 3. So yeah.
Thank you. Nikki, what is Vedanta?
So Vedanta means, can anyone answer that question? What is Vedanta?
That's non-duality, yeah?
Just feel to make sure that they are all sorted. Yeah.
How many go?
Very weeks. Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty normal. They don't go away on Christmas, like the school holidays. But yeah, we're seeing things around. Yeah, it's like lounger. It's like sunshine coast. Okay. And then you just like 30 minutes after juice out. Yeah.
Do you guys want to come closer to that?
Yeah, okay.
For our lecture? Where was the mind and breath, Kevin?
Where?
It was after pranayama. That's 11.
Pranayama.
It's about like
What do we do close up?
3 or 4 millimeters thick pages.
Page 70. Yeah.
Are you going off to see?
The most important is that, like, you don't like to always want to see it. Always have the permission to like.
But I'll make the next couple of days. That's the other thing, we're weighing that up as well.
He's getting good at that.
Business is testing.
What page is it?
It's not too far in from the start. It's after pranayama. After this, after what is prana.
After prana, before mudra.
What's the name of the page?
Mind and breath.
Oh, mind and breath. Oh, yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Just got it. Yeah. So we're not holding it down, really? Sorry. Yeah.
Dancing on my side, I go too hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's quite early. Did he heal himself out, or was he shaking something?
That's actually possible.
Yeah, it's lovely.
Yeah, that's good.
We've got this fan that we bought. It's like really good fan. But it's like,
Lovely hands.
it's really light.
Yeah.
It's so cold.
The heating was on.
It's also like
The heat is on.
The heating was on in here. I was going to turn the air conditioning on, but all I did was turn the heating off. I think that should do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Huh?
I love like his blankets with like the fan.
The fan, yeah.
what else growing up? I put the fan on and like you can see.
Good cleansing
I
though,
wouldn't turn the fan off.
with heat like that.
I would just keep the fan. Like, I didn't do anything.
Okay, so mind and breath. Let's have a little read through this, shall we? See what it says. Mind and prana, so it is said, are one, and thus mind and breath are interdependent. Where there is breath, there is thought. Without breath, the activities of the mind will dry up. Mind and prana are one. What is that? How do you feel about that? How does that?
I'm glad you said that because after you read that, I was just like, that's so profound. That's
It's there's a lot to unpack there in a way. Mind and prana, so it is said, are one, and thus mind and breath are interdependent. Where there is breath, there is thought. Without breath, the activities of the mind will dry up. Why do you think it says mind and prana are one? How does that?
Prana is energy, yeah. So everything is made out of energy first and foremost. Like if you go to the smallest part of everything, it's all just energy moving around each other.
Yeah, and the mind. The
Yeah.
mind is also
Mind
part
is
of that energy, isn't it?
Thoughts is energy condensed with curiosity or intention.
and breath is what can regulate or deregulate.
Well, that's also energy.
Yeah.
Movement energy.
And even just by doing prana work, you can feel a shift of
of the mind.
Mm.
So that shows that connection there.
Yeah, beautiful. And that's why in pranayama, there's, if you look at some of the texts on pranayama, it says that pranayama is actually the suspension of the breath. That is actually the aim of the pranayama. And that suspension of the breath is when, like it says here, the activities of the mind will dry up.
When I read the last line without breath, the activities of the mind will dry up, that's what I thought of, like, but not the natural spontaneous retention, but when we're doing like the antar or the other one, like when you're neither inhaling or exhaling, but just holding the breath or like releasing the breath, that's like when like the magic happens.
Yesterday I figured out something about retention. So there's hold and there's suspend. They're two different actions actually. So when you suspend, you breathe in and you hold the action of breathing in without holding. Holding is actually a different action where you close it all off and so it doesn't release, but suspending it, basically you keep breathing in but there's nothing more coming in. And then, because I was thinking about this, about what's it called, Kumbhaka Dhyana, so where you meditate on the pauses in between breaths, which you will extend. And you don't actually extend them by holding, you extend them by suspending, because the breath, you just stretch it out as long as you can. At some point, it doesn't even look like you're breathing anymore. Yeah, I don't know what point I was
ultimately, the ultimate kumbhaka is the kevala kumbhaka. So we have antar kumbhaka, which is the internal retention, internal holding, suspension. The bahir kumbhaka is the external retention, and then kevala kumbhaka is the spontaneous retention. And the idea is that a kevala kumbhaka is held for a long time, and that's when you really get into a deep state of meditation and pranayama work, and then it just happens and you kind of stop breathing for a little while. Yeah, that's happened to me. Suspend the breath. But I wasn't suspending in Vipassana. I was there and I just was following my breath, concentrating really hard, and then all of a sudden I knew something was about to happen, and my whole body dissolved, and there was no breath anymore. And I was just sitting in this infinite, spacious, boundless reality of subtle energy. And when I came out of it, it's like, wow, like, so this is why everybody meditates. I had that moment and haven't been back there since. But again, and then I've heard, like, even though my breath has stopped, the body's still breathing, like, you're not suffocating yourself.
Yeah, like cells are still exchanging gases and
Let's read on, shall we? These rather unusual assertions must be investigated further, for they are the core of Raja Yoga. It's not by accident that the German word atem, breath, and the Sanskrit word atman, the self, have the same root. In our understanding, to cease breathing means to die. In yoga teaching, it may mean death, but does not necessarily. Certainly, consciousness is in a general sense disappears along with breath, but what really happens after that, we do not know. Unconsciousness is a meaningless term. Do we really know whether dying and being dead are the same thing? Whether so-called unconsciousness does not encompass innumerable subconscious states? These are just a few problems relating to consciousness. We can become conscious only of events that reflect states, but never of states. We are unable to grasp with our conscious mind a state that is not reflected by an event.
It's like that thing of when a tree falls in forest and there's no one to hear it. It's the noise.
Yes.
We are aware of some of our thought processes, among others, those that bring the self into reality. This is self-consciousness. Everything that I perceive, recognize, and judge is a part of myself. For my already existing relationship to the perceived indicates that the image of the object is already part of my store. Do we get that? Yeah, that's what we're here for, pausing. Everything that I perceive, recognize, and judge is a part of myself. For my already existing relationship to the perceived indicates that the image of the object is already part of my store. So, if we already have a relationship to a perceived object, so I look outside there and I see a tree.
Sorry, Arlie is just on the way.
Thank you. I look outside and I see a tree, and I can just matter-of-factly see a tree and just not even really look at it, but just register tree, because I have that in the store of my experiences of many past experiences of seeing, touching, tasting, whatever I've done with trees in the past. Hugging trees. But that's all stored in my subconscious. I prefer the word subconscious than unconscious. So that relationship's already there.
Yeah.
That relationship's already there. So in the sense, and that's the beauty of our minds, but also the danger at the same time. We've got this incredible storehouse of subconscious, the subconscious or the unconscious storehouse of our past experiences, our memories, our conditionings, and everything else. It's all, there's a whole depth of that which is always there. Every single experience we've had in our whole life to this moment, and potentially even in past lives, is there somewhere in the depths of our subconscious. So that is an incredible gift in the sense that I don't have to think twice about, knowing a hell of a lot about trees without having to, really mull it over too much. But then the danger of that is, of course, that keeps us, away from the present as well, somehow. Because, if we're seeing everything for the first time, there's always that sense of wonder and real amazement and connection and wonder when you see something or experience something for the first time. That wow moment.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I have to walk from my car to work down the street, and so, I've been giving this task to try and embody some of these values that I want to bring in, and one of them was gratitude or slowing down. So when I walk now in the street, every tree that I see, I'm like, wow, look at that colour of that flower, oh, look at that rose, and then I go to smell the rose, and I'm like, oh my god, hi Christmas tree. I literally go through the whole street, and it's literally the whole street has become this wonderland.
It's a beautiful street as well.
Yeah, it is a beautiful street in Brighton. Yeah, and everyone has Christmas wreaths on their doors. So I'm like, oh, look at that wreath.
You were saying that you hadn't noticed?
I hadn't noticed anything before. I'd just be in my mind, walking. Or even I was focusing on my breath and trying to come into my heart a very mental process. I'm coming into my heart now, you know. Whereas now I'm like, oh, actually, by looking at nature, I'm actually more coming into my heart because I'm connecting to something outside. Yeah, it's just like different. So yeah, it's like the change in perception. Yeah.
Mindfulness.
Yeah.
People lose that in society. I
Yeah,
find. You get used to seeing, you get used to seeing a tree. You get used to seeing all of it because you're around it all the time.
So
It's
it's
really
the inner
awareness
child
to be
energy, yeah, of like wonder. Like imagine like seeing something for the first time as a child. It's like that part of me anyway. Yeah.
So that's exactly right. That's what happens as a child. You see little children and the wonder in their eyes as they're experiencing for the first time all the wonders of our universe. And then we lose it, and we get to a certain point where we've just kind of had enough of that experience, and then we get so caught up in all the cultural conditionings and relationships and all of that, then that wonder disappears, and we lose that sense of connection.
Yeah.
And that's in many ways part of the tantric philosophy, is all about being present in nature, really, being present and connecting to the world around us. And that's the beauty of this practice, because we're getting these reminders to reconnect, both with ourselves, but also with nature, with the world around us.
I had this discourse once about when you teach a child that that's a bird in the sky, and all of a sudden it's now registering, it's having this sort of labeling, identifying the bird as, it will no longer see the bird ever again. It will have its own relationship and own idea of what the bird is. And
So is that like a group thing that we do?
I think it's part of the process of like going through that and coming back
Yeah.
with that knowledge and just being present with what it is.
Yeah, like they say that you spend half your life becoming an adult and then the next half becoming a child again. Yeah.
I guess it's all achieving something as well, like on some level. Your brain needs to know how to identify danger.
Yeah.
And if you, like, that's how it does it going normal.
Yeah.
Okay, not normal.
Yeah.
And like, I guess that idea of becoming a child again is like then unlearning some of that. And,
Yeah.
So let's move on. Of experience, and that I therefore already have that karma-producing element, the previously experienced object, within me. And my relation to the object is karmically conditioned as well as karma-producing. It's thus an integral part of my personality, which is kind of what we were saying there a little bit, Ruby.
I think it might be helpful as well. Would you mind sharing what karma means to you, breaking down that one?
I mean, it's just purely cause and the effect, the cause and effect. So there's a whatever action that you create has an effect. So yeah, it depends on the way in which you make the action will have whether it has a negative or a positive effect.
Yeah.
It's just the law of the universe of cause and effect. I think one of the issues, it's just the way the universe works.
Yeah.
The cause and effect, everything follows on from something else. I think sometimes we get a bit too hung up on it.
Yeah.
Because when you, karma is dualistic. It's very dualistic, which is part of the dual universe that we live in. But ultimately, our intention is to move beyond dualism into non-duality, and in non-duality there is no karma. So it's something to consider, but not to get too caught up with. That's my belief. I think sometimes, particularly in spiritual circles, people get really caught up in this whole karmic thing. It's like, consider it, karma, it's there, but if you get, it's like anything, if you get too caught up in it, then you're just perpetuating that much you get caught up in. I don't know, does anyone else have any opinions on karma?
So kind of like what you put out, you receive, but don't get too caught up in that, because sometimes what you put out is okay.
Absolutely.
If I'm going crazy, if I'm like, that doesn't mean that something's going to happen because I put that out.
But then it's ideally the ultimate sort of goal of, say, karma yoga. So the idea of karma yoga is selfless service. So you're creating an action without the desire for a certain result.
Without getting attached to the fruit or expecting the fruit.
Yeah, without getting attached, but also without expecting the fruit. Because often people say, "Oh, I'm going to, give money to the poor, or I'm going to do something that's going to be good karma for me." So
intention.
Yeah, build up my karmic bank.
But then that's not true karma. That's not true. And if your intention is to build up your own karma, then that's actually a selfish reason to do that karmic act.
It's always on the intention. The intention is the energy that goes out in the universe.
But let's say that you give money and you're like, oh no, I'm giving it selflessly, but there's an undercurrent still. Like, how do you know that you're completely selfless? Like, do you know what I mean? How does the universe know that? Yeah, it's like...
It's funny that you say undercurrent, because you can look at karma sort of as a river, and the undercurrents are always way stronger than the upper currents. They carry everything away, they'll drown you, and the upper current, not really, unless you really float on the surface, but then...
So what do you mean? What do you mean by the undercurrent?
Well, that's the intention, that's the deepest lying intention, the intention of your actual thinking that lies behind the action. Like there's, often, you can find this probably in yourself as well, that you will sometimes do something and you let other people know my intention is this, but actually there's more behind it.
Yeah, you see.
You do something nice because I want to do something nice for you. But I actually just want something nice back. Or a kiss. Whatever.
Do you think we have control over the intention?
Yeah. It's all about awareness.
I think. Well, awareness is one thing. Control is another, right?
No, control. You never really have control, but it comes with awareness, understanding what your true intention is, and then then it comes to like, okay, how authentic are you willing to be?
Can I share a quick story?
I want to share my quick story.
It's actually so funny because actually I took the tram to here today, and there was a lady, an older lady with like a little baby inside, and some of the old-fashioned trams, which I never realised, are actually extremely inaccessible because they're actually steps. So like we were just kind of having a casual conversation at tram stop, and then she saw the tram approach and she was like, oh no, like this is like not good, like I can't get up. So I was like, that's right, we can do it together. And I was like, she's so small, but then this young guy came over and was like, let's do it together. So like we got her up on the tram as well as the baby, and like that was all good. And then we helped her down later, and then the first thing
said to me afterwards, like, we got some good karma for ourselves, didn't we? I didn't think much of it at the time, but now given we're talking about karma, and so I don't really know like much about karma, but I think perhaps like when I was like, this is just like now an example, and like I'm probably gonna like embellish it more now with this understanding, but when I was, helping that lady like put the pram on the tram, I was just fully present there, just putting the pram in the tram. Right? Yeah, but perhaps we don't know, maybe that guy had the intent, like, this is a good thing to do, you give what you receive, or that sort of thing, and so he wasn't like fully just like present, like in that very moment. Perhaps it's something like that. I know like the Gita says, like that's where I was mentioning the fruit, is like the Gita talks about how like when you do work, you do it like fully, you actually work hard, but there's no expectation of the fruit, but you're like there, and when it's finished, and that's it. When you finished your work for the day at 5, like that's it, so it's like, that's it, basically. So maybe it's something like that, yeah.
To live from that place where I'm going to get some good from doing this, it's kind of, that's still a pretty wholesome place.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, it's not a bad thing either. Yeah.
But again, there's levels.
Because where you came from was pure, like, intention just to help her. But if people have had, like, let's say, a really hard upbringing and weren't taught those values, sometimes they have to fake it till they make it. Like, you just got to kind of do as much good as you can until you start to feel that natural intention. Like, it doesn't come naturally to everyone. So I think it's like, to get to that place where you're doing everything without that karma idea, but some people do have to like put it on a bit just to get the energy going. Yeah, totally.
It's a good segue into the story where there's this monk and he's got these 2 balls, a white ball and a black ball, and he's got these stones, or palm stones, and he's sitting there, and every time he has a good thought, he takes the stone and he puts it into the ball. And every time he has a bad thought, he takes the stone and puts it into the other ball. And so he's there, and as all these good thoughts are coming, he's just powering and filling up his bowl. And then he has this incredible thought, and he puts it into that bowl, and he's like, oh, that was a good one. So he has to take that stone out of that bowl and put it in the other bowl. Because he's trying to just train his mind and just be completely pure and kind of like, oh, pat on the back.
Let's read on. To the Indian mind, it means that we are under an illusion so long as we consider the self as a constant unit, that which exists in itself and does not result from the sum total of consciousness factors. Thus, the total of what I know is myself. They're pretty loaded paragraphs, aren't they? To the Indian mind, it means that we're under an illusion as long as so if we're considering the self as a constant unit, that which exists in itself and does not result from the sum total of consciousness factors.
That's basically just the non-dual self.
So not letting like life circumstances
See,
make
beyond anything that's
it's
life.
not moulding you as a person, you just are without.
If you know that the hermetic
consciousness
principle, if
factors.
you know that the 7 hermetic principles, this all makes a lot of sense. Because the hermetic principles explain the same in different things. Like the first principle is the universe is mental. So all of the universe is mind. Started from thought or word, they say, but actually, it's more like the intention of curiosity of thinking started to make this dual thing of opposing energies that create matter at some point. So, the total of what I know is myself, which is all of the universe. Everything that's in the collective knowing, because the collective is just the extent of yourself. Everything that's in the collective knowing is all which you know, even if you don't. In this body vessel, this personal consciousness know it, like that, but it's there, it's available.
they say that in Tantra, like, every energy, even like murderers, like anyone, we've all got everything inside of us. It's just like what Ruben says, you either feed the good or the bad wolf. Like, you know, some people have just, for some reason, just put more energy into that energy that's not that great for them.
Yeah,
You know,
I do have
so
to like talk to that, because that's an oversimplification, and because the first 5 years of our life we're not able to choose which one we feed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it comes from there. What you feed more until you become aware.
Aware, yeah. Yeah, so that's, it's like, that's interesting when you get that awareness. Yeah, and it's like, oh shit, I've been spent the last 35 years feeding the wrong wolf.
But it was the right wolf at the time.
Yeah, possibly, yeah.
Wolf that fed the lesson.
Yeah, but it's a strong awareness. Like, to get to that awareness, it's a big
dream.
Yeah, that's the beginning.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's like the start of it all. Yeah.
So the illusion about human personality is fundamental. Where do we get our concept of human personality? As long as we do not get to the root of this question, we fall victim to illusion after illusion. So let's watch our conversation partner, recognizing in him, or in her, his personality. We consciously look above all at the eyes, presuming that these organs designed for seeing are also the mirror of the personality. But while we are thus watching the eyes in much the same way as we previously observed the sound of our name, they suddenly do not seem so important anymore. In fact, they become insignificant in relationship to the whole personality. The same is true when we observe other single components, mouth, nose, cheeks, or forehead. Only the sum total of all makes up the personality. We realize that by observing the details we miss the essence. It's as though we were watching the glass rather than the image in the mirror. Then we realize that not even the sum total of all these details gives us the living image of the whole. But what is it? The human personality is not in itself, it only becomes within us. If we look mechanically at the surface, we see nothing but the surface. Our inner being alone, not the eye, can see behind the surface. We have no specific name for this subtle inner organ: heart, intuition, feeling, soul, inner eye. All these are current expressions which are as familiar as they are vague, although they all express the right thing. So, do we get that concept that the inner self is what obviously can witness the personality?
I was watching this series by Alan Watts, and in that he mentions this interesting thing about the word person and the fact that it comes from the Latin word persone, persona, and it means mask. And so that really helped understand the concept of personality for me. When I saw that.
Yeah, and those masks are, they're not real. They're temporary and interchangeable. You can wear different masks for different parts of the story, parts of the play.
Yeah, like in Tantra they talk about, like the good girl mask and the people, like there's all these different archetypal masks. So it's just, I guess, becoming aware of which ones kind of fit into us, and then
what serve you rather than drain you.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. But Joe Dispenza talks about the personality as, you have certain habits, thoughts and behaviours that create your daily mood, and then order to change your personality, you have to go right back to what thoughts, behaviours and habits are you doing in the day that are creating the personality, if that's something that you want to work on. Yeah, so he's pretty good at that.
And manifestation.
Yeah, like you gotta, he talks about getting to know the old self, like the self that we are right now, and then learning all the thoughts, habits and behaviours that old self has, and then letting go of that, and then visualising the new self, how would that new self, what would they do every day? That's why I'm walking in the garden, looking at all the plants, because it's like my new self would be more aware of that. What thoughts? Like it's a really big process.
It's funny because your new self is actually your unadulterated self, which is your old self.
Old self, yeah. Yeah. My new self is my most childlike, not childish, but childlike self, which is connected to my essence, which is joy. But everyone has their own essence, yeah.
So even in your spiritual journeys, start with asking the fundamental question, what is self? And so with what you say, that it seems like it's related to personality, but then going deeper, asking what is self, that process of self-inquiry. Yeah.
But then we still need a personality to function in the dual, is that dual? In the dual world. So it's like, like we all have an inner self, but we do need some sort of personality. Like it's not a bad thing to have. Yeah.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's the whole thing. Like we have these personalities that we have the potential to change our personalities. And essentially the idea is that we want to make the personality more sattvic. If you think about on that concept of the gunas, you don't want to be too rajasic or too tamasic. That's the aim of living in the world, is being as sattvic as possible.
Yeah.
So even creating our personality as a sattvic template but then, like Ruben said, but then it's also acknowledging that the true self-inquiry is, that's just the personality, and that's just the transient part of who we are. And the deeper self is something more eternal. It's the non-dual aspect of who we are. And then all personality dissolves, and that we need to even
Do you think that Clive has a personality?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, like he's still, even when he's awakened, he's still like certain things, dislike certain things, so he's still kept that part of him. Yeah, and he's awakened to himself. Yeah, so that's.
But he recognises that that's just his temporary personality.
Like he's not attached to it.
Yeah, in the sense that we get very attached to our personalities. I'm a yoga teacher, and I'm a good yoga teacher, and I'm striving to be the best yoga teacher that can be. And
it's identifying with the thoughts that personality has.
It gives us the action. We get very hung up identifying exactly with our personality. But that's what we have to let go of ultimately.
It's interesting, the ones that don't are children. Children aren't attached to seeming a certain way, and that's why it's very, the inner child concept comes from that way.
It's just an easier way to look at it, to frame it. If you actually want to experience it, tapping into the inner child wonder, helps. Because otherwise it's kind of hard to experience.
I have from William Whitecloud, so I did a course with William Whitecloud. There's a step, and so he calls it to get into your innocence. So you stop making sense of stuff. So to get into your innocence, there's first sort of a meditation that you can do to integrate your inner child, which is a whole visualization where you meet your baby self in a temple, and you hold this and you merge with it, to bring that feeling of that childlike self to the forefront. And then, the next step, so this is through, this is for working with your intuition, which you also call superconscious, or the higher self, or universal intelligence, whatever. Vocabulary is very wide on these subjects. So what a child does is stating the obvious.
Yeah.
It's always, it starts with stating the obvious and then you keep making it up. Because we make everything up, but we think we know everything, so we do it through thinking and figuring it out first and then confirming, But intuition is you state the obvious and you keep making it up, you don't stop the flow. As soon as you start thinking about something, your superconscious will stop. That's the innocent, and that's working from a childlike self. You can do this with anything, with reading people, or with creating something, or with teaching yoga.
And in order to be in that state, you have to be fully present with yourself and the other person, which is like tough to do. So that's like, that would be like the ideal state to be in all the time. And you're pretty much awakened if you're in that innocent state, like 24/7.
So let us look with non-mechanical eyes behind the surface. Then we see the image of the object within ourselves inwardly. Seeing is only a small fraction of perceiving, which essentially means to melt the outer image and the interior concept into one, simultaneously to see and co-feel. And it is the same way with everything that we perceive with our sense organs. In reality, it's not only sense perception, for all senses are only tools, organs of communication. This, our personality, shaping in a world, in its sum total is Atman. Yet the 1,000 little stones that make up a mosaic are, in their multitude, far from being a picture. Decisive is the manner in which they are put together into a pattern. It's this unity alone that creates the complete impression, not analytical observation. It's the inner perception that is based on something higher than the sum total of the individual pieces. These countless elements of consciousness are united into the living total personality through prana, which has its source in breath. Thus, the spirit, the human essence, is born of breath. And so, in a way, we breathe in the world and breathe it out in the form of the personality thus created. The problem that concerns yoga is the creation of a harmonious relationship between the static personality components, the Atman, the mosaic picture, and the dynamic personality, the creative artist's mind. In India, this means the harmonious marriage between static Purusha and dynamic Prakriti or Shakti, between the human personality and its inherent forces. What I might like to do at this point is move into, give this a little break, and move into this book here, to have a little look a bit more at, so that's, a little more esoteric in nature, and let's sort of break it into a bit more of a logical way of understanding the mind and how it works. So this is from this book of, it's called The Mind Illuminated, by Dasa. And it's a pretty cool book on meditation and understanding the mind. So, and it's quite similar to what we explored already with Patanjali, but it's good to see it from this different model as well. And, potentially you might be able to even digest it more easily than Patanjali, or at least then Patanjali becomes more digestible once you set it from this perspective. So this I'm going to work through this chapter called The Mind System, looking at the system of the mind, the model. It builds on previous models presented in this book and provides a more complete picture not just of consciousness, but of the mind as a whole. The mind system model originally comes from the ancient Yogacara school of Buddhism. For the most part, this chapter simply explains that model using modern ideas from cognitive psychology to make things easier to understand. Occasionally, though, we introduce some new concepts to make our overall picture of the mind that much clearer. Now, because the mind is complex, any in-depth description of how it works must be complex as well. So there's no avoiding the fact that the mind system model takes some effort and study to understand. Yet it will give you a much deeper grasp of what you've experienced so far in your practice, and will prove particularly helpful in later stages since it throws light on ideas like metacognitive awareness, unification of mind, and no self. In short, the mind system model is a powerful tool. By taking time to become familiar with it, you'll be richly rewarded. So the mind as a system. Now you notice we're calling it the mind system instead of the mind. That's because although we usually talk about the mind as if it were a single entity, it's really made up of many distinct but interconnected processes. And that's something we learned from Patanjali. Can we remember the different aspects of chitta at Patanjali? Buddhi?
Buddhi.
Yeah.
Ahankara, smriti.
Good.
Mind, intellect, ego.
Yeah.
Memory.
Memory.
Good. Well done. So yeah, they're interconnected. It's all chitta from the yogic perspective, but they all have their own unique tasks and qualities, don't they? So this complex system is composed of two main parts. In this system, it's the conscious mind and the unconscious mind. The conscious mind is the part of our psyche we experience directly, while the unconscious is the part that, with its many complex behind-the-scenes activities, we can only know indirectly through inference. The mind system is represented in this particular figure by a large circle. The conscious mind is at the center of the mind system, surrounded by the unconscious mind. Different parts of the unconscious mind, what we'll call unconscious subminds, are connected to the conscious mind by two-way arrows. The arrows represent movement of information back and forth between the conscious and the unconscious parts of the mind system. Now, let me illustrate that. So there we go. So conscious mind in the middle, and then unconscious mind is everything around it, and all
sensory mind.
So you've got sensory mind and discriminating mind as there's two main mind factors, main sort of groups. And the sensory, obviously, that's all relationship to our senses, and then the discriminating mind is more the thinking, the emotional, and the narrating aspects of mind.
So is all of that the chitta?
Yeah.
And how is that different to Atman?
Different to Atman?
Yeah.
Part of Atman.
Yeah, Atman we would say is more than just the chitta. So Atman includes the inner awareness.
And is it the sheaths? Is that?
The sheaths as well,
yeah.
The sheaths,
Yeah.
the koshas.
Yeah.
Yeah, the koshas.
That's part of Atman. Like is Atman the self?
It's this personal soul.
Atman, yeah, is the personal soul. So it's the inner light of awareness within us, but tainted by our own, our own experiences, our own minds. So it's kind of like the Atman is like the gateway to Brahman, and it is Brahman because everything is Brahman. But in that sense of we've come to incarnate in this dual universe, and so in that experience of me being Nikki and you being Amwesha, we've created an individual aspect of Brahma, you could say, and so that's the Atman. Really, is that connecting point between the Brahman and just the individuality.
I was watching something recently about this man who got attacked, he got hit on the head with a lot of force with blunt objects, and when he came to and woke up out of hospital, he became gifted with mathematics, and so all of a sudden he just became this phenomenal mathematician, and coming up with new equations, and just all of a sudden changing the game. And apparently when they scanned his brain, he had access to parts that were considered to be subconscious, and because of this hit, some triggered and activated new pathways that he got engaged with. And for us, he's saying we're already these brilliant mathematicians moving through space and being able to do everything that comes with balancing all that, but the subconscious is just taking a back seat so that we can focus on the things that we need to. And so part of me just wants to get clipped around the ears. Yeah. We could go the other way.
Yeah. So don't try that at home.
Yeah. Don't try this at home, kids. So the conscious mind. So the models we've presented so far, they talk about consciousness and the mind as though they were the same. The mind system model, however, recognises that consciousness is only one part of the mind, a much smaller part actually than the unconscious. We can think of the conscious mind as a screen. Projected on it are the contents of the moments of consciousness from the 6 categories of sensory experience: visual, auditory, olfactory, gustatory, and so the tensory and mental, and binding moments of consciousness. The conscious mind can be described entirely in terms of these 7 types of moments of consciousness. In other words, consciousness is visual experience, auditory experience, etc. Yeah, so if we look at that, that's talking about through the sensory mind, all the experiences that we experience.
Can I just ask a question? I know we interface with reality with all our senses, but what about when we feel somebody watching us and we can't see them, but the hair on the back of our neck stands up and it's like we know that something's here? How would we describe that? Because it looks so intuitive. But again, like, we can't perceive that this is taking place, but we can definitely feel it.
In terms of sensing, that would be so much sensory.
Yeah.
Because your body is in awareness, and that other person is just another part of you, like with a loop, with a feedback loop.
Yeah.
That connects with you through their visual senses. And if you're aware of your body's mind, you will feel that. Not everybody does. I had a crazy experience the other day also with someone we were talking about all of this as well, and about chitta, and how about when you look into each other's eyes, not necessarily eyes, but that's easier for us to understand. you look, you know, the cheetahs look at each other, but also the witness behind the cheetahs look through the lenses of the cheetah towards each other, which is the same energy, being, whatever. So yeah, through understanding all of that, that's why you feel someone looking at you. Or that's why also sometimes, you know, with someone that you're really well connected to, resonate with, you have these telepathic experiences. You know, that you can finish each other's sentences, or someone does exactly that what you were just thinking. There's no accidents.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which comes back to Namaste, which really is all about
Exactly.
You know, recognizing the spirit within you is the same as the spirit within you.
Because who said to me last week that the soul lives in the centre of the head and not in... I thought my soul lived in my heart, but apparently the actual anatomical...
Pineal gland.
Yeah, but so the soul lives in the... Yeah, in the head. I was like,
So from the Book of the Dead plus science figured out 47 days when the soul reincarnates, according to the Book of the Dead.
Once you've died, yeah.
And it's 47 days after conception when the pineal gland forms, and that's also when the baby experiences a flood of DMT, so it experiences coming alive, which you also experience when you die.
Because the Kabbalah talks about the soul coming down not at birth, but at a certain time after birth. Yeah, like it goes down into the body. Yeah, so...
Birth meaning coming into the world, or birth conception?
No, birth coming into the world.
Are you sure? Because I thought it was after conception, 47 days or whatever it was after conception.
Oh, so you're saying after conception the soul comes
47
in?
days in after conception
I don't
is
know,
when
I
the pineal
can't say
gland
for
forms.
sure now. I'm pretty sure there's something in the Kabbalah about actually coming after birth. But I might be wrong. I'd have to look, like that would take me a while because I've got the Tanya and it's in the Tanya and it's a business. So I can look it up. Yeah.
So our experience of these moments of consciousness is passive. Yet, recall from the moments of consciousness model that every moment also has an active component, intention. The intention in a moment of consciousness may be subliminal, remaining in the background, or may itself become an object of attention. These conscious intentions can be precursors to mental, verbal, or physical actions. For example, say that a moment of somatosensory consciousness arises with an unpleasant skin sensation as its object. The accompanying intention might be a spontaneous urge to scratch and itch. Another example is when a moment of visual consciousness arises. If its object is interesting, there will be an intention to stay focused on it. Consciously, we'll experience this as interest in and continued attention to that, say, beautiful flower. Objects such as memories and ideas, perceived via the mind sense, also have intentions associated with them. Say a particular memory from your childhood arises. That moment of consciousness arrives with an intention. The intention is to pursue a sequence of thoughts associated with the memory. If the intention is strong enough, that's exactly what will happen. Consciously, you will experience yourself starting to reminisce about your childhood. We often feel like we're engaging in these long trains of thought intentionally. Yet, as you know from your practice, they can be spontaneous and impulsive as well. The intention connected with a mental object such as a memory can drag attention through a long sequence of impulsive thoughts. Once again, all moments of consciousness have intentions associated with them. Intentions that we may experience consciously as an impulse towards some mental, verbal, or physical action. Do we get that?
Kind of like anxiety.
Well, that can be a result, for sure.
Yeah, it depends if the memory is anxiety provoking. Yeah. Like if you're thinking about your childhood and then all of a sudden you start thinking about like some traumatic episode, and yeah, it would be causing that. Yeah.
Let's look at these unconscious minds now. The unconscious part of the mind system is divided into two major parts, that sensory one at the top and the discriminating mind at the bottom. The sensory mind processes the information from the 5 physical senses. It will generate moments of sight, sound, smell and so forth. So it generates those into the conscious mind. That's the moment. In contrast, the discriminating mind, the greater part of which is called the thinking and emotional mind, produces moments of consciousness with mental objects such as thoughts and emotions. It's the part of the mind where reasoning and analysis occur. And the sensory and discriminating mind are each composed of many individual sub-minds that function simultaneously and autonomously. Like major divisions within a corporation, each with many departments serving specific purposes. Each sub-mind independently performs its own specific task in the service of the mind system as a whole. So that's the sort of overview of these two different minds. So let's go into more detail of, first of all, the sensory mind. So this part of the mind is only concerned with information that comes from the outside by or through the physical senses. Within the sensory mind, there's the 5 sub-minds, each with its own sensory field corresponding to one of the 5 physical senses. One sub-mind works exclusively on phenomena concerned with vision, another exclusively on phenomena concerned with hearing, and so forth. Each sensory sub-mind has its own speciality, so to speak, called its cognitive domain, as well as its own function to perform. The job of each of the sub-minds is to process and interpret raw sensory data as it comes in. So first, the sub-minds create sense percepts from that raw information, mental representations of the actual stimulus received by the sense organs. So these sense percepts are what we perceive as, say, warmth or blue or a chirp, for example, once they eventually reach consciousness. Next, these sense percepts are recognized, categorized, analyzed and evaluated in terms of their immediate importance. So the data comes in through, what our experience. So we see something, or we smell something, we hear something. The data comes in, and so there's this thing called a sense percept. It's like the raw information, the mental representation of what's received by the sense organ, and that's based on our conditioning or our previous experience.
That's what they say, like perception is reality, like your perception is your reality.
That's blue, that's a chirp, that's warm. So for instance, consider an external sound that the auditory mind picks up from your surroundings. The auditory mind takes that raw information, processes it, and converts it into a still very raw mental representation of that sound. That sense percept may take the form of a loud, sharp sound. The next step is for the auditory mind to recognize the sense percept. Give it a more descriptive but very basic label like hand clap, and then categorize and evaluate it as unexpected but not threatening. So remember, this all happens in the unconscious before you have the conscious experience of hearing the sound of a hand clap. So finally, each submind can also store these sense percepts, adding them to a database or inventory that makes it easier to interpret new information in the future. At the end of this process, the unconscious auditory mind projects the hand clap into your peripheral awareness. And from there, it can become the object of a moment of attention. So that's when it brings it into the conscious mind as a moment of attention. Keep in mind that, unlike in this example, most sounds, sights, smells, etc., processed by the sensory minds, remain in a kind of awareness that happens entirely at an unconscious level. Meaning, now if I really think about it, I can hear the hum of the computer. I can hear the hum of the TV, the sounds outside. But most of the time, we're not being conscious of that. It's going into our subconscious, but it's just being stored there because it's not really important at the moment.
Sorry, Mickey, I need to have it all. Merry Christmas, everybody. See you next year.
I'm very excited.
You guys. And I'm really excited to hear your set song, so I'll watch it. Yeah. See you.
Ciao, bye.
I love dropping. See you next year. The simple things in life.
So many of these remain entirely at an unconscious level. The wearing of a fan, the sensations of sitting in a chair, or the faint smell of carpet cleaner, examples of things we may not be conscious of, but potentially could be. They don't become conscious because they're filtered out at the level of subconscious awareness. Along with each sense precept, the sensory subminds also produce a hedonic feeling of pleasant, of unpleasant, or neutral. This hedonic feeling accompanies the sense percept as part of the moment of consciousness. For example, the somatosensory mind will evaluate a cool breeze on the skin as pleasant, but a mosquito bite as unpleasant. By contrast, breath sensations tend to be neutral. And the last significant point about sensory minds is that they play an important role in automatic reactions. For instance, if the auditory mind picks up a strange or unexpected sound, your head will immediately turn towards that sound. That's an inborn reflex. But there are many other automatic reactions we learn through practice and repetition, like when a sprinter leaps off the starting block in response to the starter's gun. Whenever a reflex motor response is programmed to a particular stimulus, the sensory submind involved will automatically initiate the response. This means we'll never be conscious of an intention to perform a reflex action. It just happens. And we only become aware of the action once it's already in motion. As you can tell, these sensory subminds are all doing a lot of processing outside of consciousness. The final products of this activity are sense percepts, associated hedonic feelings, and automatic responses. When sense percepts and hedonic feelings are projected into consciousness, this information becomes available as input for the discriminating mind. We'll take a couple of minutes break and move a little bit.
Just with that, it's funny because with my martial arts practice, we would do things very mindfully, and you'd like to think you're in this situation, you're going to do this and move like that. And I was going for a run, and this magpie just comes straight for me. It didn't even seem like it was swooping me, but it just came for me, and just like my reaction, it's just like, just get out of the way. And in that moment, I realized that the body's intelligence and subconscious intelligence transcends anything that I think I'm going to do to like save the day. It's like, just gotta just let go and just gonna react. It's amazing.
Good one.
I feel like yoga as well strengthens your senses, like taking in, because you're adjusting your body and you're becoming aware of so many little things, and your breath, how your body feels, activating, you know, so that then strengthens. And then wearing in your mind, what's your mind thinking at the time, your breath, all these senses, and it strengthens that awareness then in your day-to-day life.
It's funny you say that about like the, you know, subconscious kind of memory, like reactions and stuff like that as well. Like every time I ask my coach, like, how do I do this? If they do that, then what do I do? You know, like, I always have, and his answer every time is stop thinking so much. You just need to work on your muscle memory, like, and continue doing what you're doing. If you do something wrong, I'll tell you. But stop thinking about it so much.
What's this for work?
For martial
arts.
Yeah. And then your body will learn, won't it?
Yeah, my body
Your
does
body's
things
gonna
naturally.
learn.
Like now, if someone punches, like I would do my slip just normally. Like I don't know how to do that really.
You don't have to like just be so dialed in.
Yeah.
Like, if you're not, you're gonna be hurt or injured. Just like go.
Yeah. And sometimes I kind of need to be punched in the face to remember to like get out of the way.
Life lesson as well.
I started actually recently working with a somatic therapist, which has been very, very important for me.
Oh, wow.
I've done, her modality is called somatic experiencing. I've only had 2 sessions, but it's absolutely transformational. I've done a bit of like talk therapy, like psychotherapy, counseling, like general like psychologist, but it's been transformational. Like I don't talk it much, like most of the hour sessions actually just working with the body. Because like the way her approach is that the body has a natural intelligence. So that we are just allowing the space and the environment for the body to work through whatever it needs to work through. So it's not entirely, obviously at the end we use the mind to talk conceptually about what we just like want to explain it, because I'm a mind person. But like I don't even know how to describe what we do sometimes with the body. Sometimes it's just experiential. Like for me, she's told me that like my response is like a freeze response. So like collapse shame. So I'll keep it all within my body. So like my most recent session with her, she's like, I need to like develop healthy aggression. So like we did this thing where like after a while, just like feeling into my body and like kind of just allowing the body to be however it wants. We did this thing where she put her hands against me. And it was like this, like against me like this, and this was me like pushing myself, you know, pushing away and like defending myself and being active about it rather than just like letting, you know, life, like, you know, like hit me basically. And it was like huge for me, you know, so like looking outside for someone, it's like, right, you did that. Like, but for me, like after all of, I don't know, something just the body like knows to do that. And then after that, when I can experience this, you know, something kind of like not just to discharge, but me becoming more comfortable doing this, and that changes the way that I respond to in my workplace, people telling me shit, or even like in relationships, rather than just like exactly having it down and being able to like have that healthy, fresh.
Where did you find Sakana?
She works in Warren Diet. Her name is Tanya. She's incredible. It's called integrated trauma therapy. But I think the modality she uses is called somatic experiencing. It's phenomenal. I've done like a bit of talk therapy, but this like changes the game. It like literally changes the game. It's the body. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's all like it's
So just quickly, I'll just finish this because otherwise we've only really talked about the sensory mind, just a little bit on the discriminating mind. I won't go into too much detail just because of time. I want to play that satsang too. But just quickly, the discriminating mind, so that part down below, the sensory minds don't project every sense percept they generate into the consciousness, as we learnt. But those that they do become available to the discriminating mind. So it assimilates that information, further processing these sense percepts and transforming them into more complex mental representation. In other words, into perceptions. For example, the visual mind will project a collection of sense percepts into consciousness as, say, an image of a rapidly moving black and red thing, or an even more specific image, such as a black and red bird flying by. The discriminating mind takes that and creates more elaborate representations of this simple concept by combining it with memories, previous sense percepts, and other stored information, and even things from our imagination. The image of a black and red bird thus becomes transformed into the specific conceptual object, red-winged blackbird. The original sense percepts may have been accompanied by a hedonic feeling of pleasure at the gracefulness of the shape and the combination of black and red. The discriminating mind might then add its own emotional overtones, such as an experience maybe of happiness at seeing and correctly identifying such a beautiful bird. Perceptions based on sense percepts are only one kind of mental object produced by the discriminating mind. It also generates a large variety of other, more purely conceptual representations, such as thoughts and ideas. So here we get to emotions such as joy, fear, and anger, likewise come from the discriminating mind, which is why we call a major part of it the thinking/emotional mind. Finally, it can produce its own hedonic feelings of pleasure and displeasure. So here's an example of how the discriminating mind works. Let's say early in the day someone called you pushy. After that thought registered in consciousness, it sank into the discriminating mind. Throughout the day, the discriminating mind might further digest that information on an unconscious level, perhaps deciding that being called pushy was unpleasant. Later that night, the discriminating mind may produce a memory of that incident back into your consciousness, along with a feeling of displeasure. When this displeasing memory becomes an object of consciousness, the discriminating mind can process it even more and project new thoughts or emotions about the incident into consciousness. Questions might arise, such as, what does pushy really mean? Should I feel ashamed or angry at being called pushy? Or maybe proud, since pushiness is a kind of assertiveness? Or is it really true? Or should I try to change? These examples are intended to give you a sense of how the discriminating mind works. However, speaking of it as though it were only one thing is misleading. In reality, the discriminating mind consists of many separate subminds, just like the sensory mind. Each submind performs specialized activities and has its own particular function and purpose. This can be anything from performing arithmetic, to caring for a baby, to deciding when a situation calls for you to get angry. Any or all of these subminds can be active at the same time, and although several may be working on the same task, they do so independently of each other. So then it goes into look at these subminds, the subminds of the discriminating mind in more detail. But yeah, look, just a bit of an overview of that model of psychology, of looking at how the unconscious mind predominantly works and how it relates to the conscious mind.
mean, it's a really complex
Person.
subject.
Well, it's a university degree in itself.
Yeah, like it's so much to
They say
digest.
a household will use chemicals to clean the house, but then as teachers, we need to know what's in the cleaning products, all the different ingredients, breaking it down so that we understand conceptually what goes into creating a clean house. And yeah, it's like you can get off at any stop along the way, how deep you can go. But it's sort of fascinating just to see just how it registers things that have happened, how it comes back up, gets stored into the body, there's a feeling attached to it. And it's like, the body holds the score like that.
Yeah, which we have.
And so this is the whole purpose in many ways of studying, of the idea of self-inquiry. Is like ultimately we're working towards this idea of self-realization, which is realizing the true self, the inner self, eternal life awareness, the non-dual awareness and all of that. And it can happen any time, spontaneously. It can happen, it can just happen that we find ourselves in that state. But then to be able to then really understand what we've gone beyond, because it's essentially going beyond the mind, then we need to sort of understand at least a little bit about well, what is this mind and how it works. And that's, we'll listen to Eric now, that's his story. I'm not going to give you his full story now, but in a nutshell, he had an awakening, and it was almost like, I don't really understand this state of non-dual awareness. You know, it's magnificent and all the rest. But he had to then backtrack, and he said, you know, he'd never studied yoga or anything like that before. It was like, how do I make sense of this? So he then went to India and studied Vedanta and dived in there for years, even though usually it's the other way around. You go to Vedanta to study that, to awaken to non-dual awareness.
So how did he awaken? Was he wasn't meditating during that time, or?
No, he awakened through sacraments, through sacramental use, so using like plant medicine.
Okay, yeah.
But you can have it even without it. Like there's a person called Henry Schuckman that talks about how he had just a moment where he was in like nature, so water in a ship, and like he had,
Yeah, I mean Eckhart Tolle, he just woke up one day on a park bench or something. And the same, but him too, he didn't have that background of self-inquiry, so it took him a long time to understand what had happened. Or, you know, to be able to integrate it back into his everyday world. But on that note, let's have a listen to Eric, his little satsang, and just because of time, we'll have to finish up shortly afterwards. Now, you guys online, I was going to play this over the sound system. Hopefully, actually, maybe I'll play it through the computer, and then hopefully just you guys can hear it that way. Try that.
Module 4, Section 2.
Could you hear that, Helen, when I played that?
Play it again, sorry.
Module 4, Section 2.
Yeah.
Selfless action and inner peace.
Yeah.
Cool.
Bit tinny, but I can hear it.
Module 4, Section 2. Selfless action and inner peace. Lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness into light. Lead us from death to immortality. Peace, peace, peace. The passage goes like this. In case you're not able to live the life of truth vision, achieved through inner renunciation, then aim to live a full lifetime of joyful, selfless actions in inner peace. The previous lesson emphasized the householder's path of inner renunciation, with an encouragement to transform personal perspective to a profound vision of truth. Inner renunciation is twofold. It means, 1, renouncing ownership and controllership, and 2, renouncing egoistic self-aggrandizement and self-centeredness. So the message is simple. It's really simple if we boil it down. Don't take your personality or the world too seriously. Remain in awareness, not in memory, not in seriousness, not in imagination. Memory belongs to the mind, not to you. Seriousness belongs to conflict, not to you. Anticipations or expectations belong to imagination, not to you. In other words, you are not the mind. You are not the conflict. You are not the imagination. You are what's aware of all of those things. So, don't live to fulfill your desires. Live to be free from their binding power, influence, and control. See, we think freedom is the freedom to pursue our desires, the freedom to gain what we desire. That's not freedom. We're still controlled by those desires. We're a slave to those desires. Freedom is to be free from the desire itself as an influencing power or controller. So we can rise above those desires. Know that the world expresses through complementary energies, yes. Duality is the story of this world. Accept it and be free from it. Rise above it. Interactive life, the transitional world, is for our evolution. It's not for our enslavement. Let there be emotions, let there be thoughts. The past relies on memory. Future and expectations are just memory projected forward. They all belong to the mind. Become aware of these and let these die down naturally. Don't feed into them. Detach from them. Turn attention to awareness. Become the master of yourself. Move away from the slavery of the world, of expecting the world to solve our problems. This is the message of the previous class, the message of the first wave of wisdom. Inner renunciation results from clear spiritual discernment. However, inner renunciation can be a challenge for some still engaged in the world, still developing spiritual discernment to the degree that spiritual detachment results naturally. Whether spiritual detachment matures to inner renunciation or not, we must still engage with the world, and this is true for householders as well as saints and sages of the highest order alike. This class discusses how to engage with life in a way that is in harmony with the highest truth. So thus far, we're learning that the world is an expression of consciousness. It is divinity itself. That's what all of the classes, all of the lessons, all of the texts are trying to tell us. That all of this is the expression of consciousness alone. Every single bit of it is divine.
We begin with trust in this teaching and our teachers because it's not readily apparent. It doesn't seem that way to us. We don't immediately see the world the way it's being described in these lofty texts. If we already had a clear vision of truth, then there's no need for trust. There's no need for study. How is it that great beings, teachers, saints, sages, through their teachings, they all agree with this vision that everything is divine, that the world itself is divinity? See, we don't feel like that. Normal people don't feel like that. It's difficult, this path of inner renunciation. Outer renunciation is even more difficult. It has its benefits, it has its drawbacks. And inner renunciation has its benefits and its drawbacks. But it can be very, very difficult if we're still in a life expression where we have to engage fully in the world. So that's what this lesson is about. It's the spiritual plan B, to plan A being renouncing the world as the solution to our problems. The world's not going to give us what we hope for. So we're talking about plan B. And that's the point of this lesson. So when our intentions are on the highest truth, bad intentions are impossible. The instant our intentions focus on egoistic personal indulgence, conflict naturally arises, division arises. Both difficulties and delights in life will always be in the world. They come as a package. We can experience both, but remain unattached to them. This is possible. Let them come. Let them go. We remain steady in awareness. Self with attachments is to be a person, just like everybody else. Pure self, transcendent of attachments, is divinity. When the mind is conflicted, we're identifying ourselves as a person. When we're at peace, we're in union with our divine nature. Selfless actions help overcome greed and binding desires. So, what that means is, we can still be active in the world, but just not by feeding our ego, not by doing things specifically in a self-serving way for us, but making sure that our actions are beneficial to other people. Whatever we gain from spirituality, we must test it in the field of life. Selfless behavior is how we test spiritual maturity in the field of life. How we become a living expression of what we're learning through our self-inquiry. We become a living expression by expressing what we've learned in our spiritual life. When we see the world for what it truly is, we'll have natural respect and reverence for the world. But as long as there's still illusion for us, the world is going to seem a broken place, a daunting place, a scary place, an unfulfilling place, something that seems to be, it seems that it needs to be fixed. Okay? That's illusion. If we see the world for what it truly is, we'll have nothing but natural respect and reverence for it. But that's not always easy. Even at the most elemental level of nature, we're all related. And when I say all, I mean everything is related. Not just living organisms, not just people and humans, not just organic life, but inorganic as well, sentient or insentient. We're all stardust. It's not even that grand of a vision. I'm not even talking about Big Bang. I'm just talking about an explosion of a sun. All of us, our ingredients that make us is stardust. We're all related. We experience life, and with this interactive life experience comes the consequences of our actions. It's so simple. Make the actions righteous. And by righteous, I don't mean that in a religious sense. I mean the kind of actions that are in harmony with what is going on around us and that are beneficial not only to ourselves but others as well. Learn and enjoy with a spirit of sincerity, sincere but never serious, and make sure that whatever you enjoy doing helps bring joy to others in some way or another. This form of action is an expression of the inherent joy in life, the divine play that is life. The whole of life is a testing ground for whatever we gain from our inner life. We're all on a double journey. Two parts. The first is an external journey, how we engage with life. And that's with our loved ones, our nearest and dearest ones. It's with our society and culture. It's with nature at large. And it's with the grander ideas of the universe. That's the outer, or the external journey. Our inner journey is our journey with ourself. And that's what self-inquiry is. It's making an inner journey to find out who and what that self truly is. Everyone expresses primarily through his or her external journey simply by living life. It's all perfectly natural and valid. Within this context, we're on an inward journey to realize the truth of being. The outward journey becomes the testing ground for the inner journey. If we have truly grown spiritually, inwardly, how we live outwardly will reflect that. If we live an outward expression in turmoil or with conflict, that is an indication that we have that turmoil and conflict within. If we've grown spiritually inwardly, and there's a clarity and a stability, a givingness, then our outward expression in life will reflect that. And when these two are combined, the inner life that leads to higher knowledge and the outer life as a testing ground, we have a science of spirituality where information becomes transformation. We can take the theory that we're working with, this higher knowledge, our spiritual practices and so forth, and we can take them to the laboratory of life and see how they stand up in worldly situations. Then our spirituality is living, it's alive. The life lived in a spirit of selfless action and inner peace. What a beautiful attitude of mind. So, a primary lesson in this second section, this second wave of wisdom, is to live lively and enthusiastically, 100%. And with humility. The world doesn't need us. I'm going to say this again. The world does not need us. It will go on without us. So learn and enjoy fully. A good practice is just to ponder that. If today was your last day on earth, you were told that you have a disease, you're not going to live throughout the rest of the day. Midnight it's over. Think about how the world would go on without you. Oh yes, it would. Time would not stop for that. It wouldn't. People would have a sniffle and the world would continue. So, make the most of it. Be present in all actions. Okay, what is presence? What do I mean by that? It's simply never dwelling on the past, nor becoming caught in the imagining of future scenarios. Those are both traps. You can get stuck in that. If you don't feel that you dwell on the past, or that you're not caught in future imaginations and scenarios, look around you. You'll see people who are firmly caught and trapped and bound by the past. Or you'll you'll come across people who are always talking about I'm gonna do this. I want to do that. I'm working towards this. I've got goals, I've got aims. Everything, all of the attention, all the thought, all the effort is in an imagination. That leaves almost nothing for right now. When the attention is on the past or the future, where is there enough attention for it right now? When we are 100% present, the past naturally resolves itself, and the future will take care of itself in a beautiful way. Now, how can we assure that our actions bring about beneficial consequences? It's a very important question. Easy. Make all actions harmless expressions of joy. We tend to chase future happiness through our actions. This is a terrible mistake. Never do anything to gain happiness. Whatever you do it with happiness already here. Already now. Already here in your heart, at the core of your being. It's that simple. If you do something to gain happiness, it's like admitting that happiness is something external to you. It's an object outside of you. See, this is where the error lies. We are happiness itself. That happiness gets covered up by life situations. It gets covered up by our memories, by our hopes and dreams. When we cover that happiness, we feel like we've lost it. We've never lost it. We've just covered it up. It just needs to be revealed to us again. There are 3 truisms. We have no choice but to live in the present. That's number 1. We have no choice but to live in the present. We are always living in the present, regardless of how the mind perceives it. What we're doing now is always now. The second, number 2, every action happens only in the present, even if our attention is otherwise engaged elsewhere. Every action happens only in the present. It's happening right now. And the third, when we can find joy in every action, life is fulfilled. Happiness and fulfillment, that they are our very nature. When we feel joyless and distracted, with attention otherwise engaged elsewhere, while doing anything with the hopes that we're going to get happiness later, this is a delusion. It will never come. We'll be out of step, out of sync. And worse yet, we'll be ignoring the happiness and fulfillment that is our true nature. When we continuously postpone our happiness in every moment and through every action, when will it come? Have you ever met the future? Has the future ever come to you? Tomorrow never comes. Someday never comes. Because it's always today. In thinking, speaking, or doing anything, do it with enthusiasm. Do it with happiness. Living this way, we avoid negative mental impressions and problematic psychological imprints. Our mind becomes pure thereby. Actions are never for rewards. If rewards happen, wonderful. They're a byproduct of actions done with a sense of presence and joy. If negative results happen, even though we're still doing our actions with a sense of presence and joy, negative results may happen. Let them. We can rest in the fact that there are always additional choiceless factors involved. This is inevitable in worldly life. Let me say that again. There will always be additional choiceless factors involved. This is part of living a worldly life. What's the problem with it? To think that we can or will ever be able to control everything as we engage with life, that's delusion. It's sheer delusion. There's so little that we actually do control. In fact, who we are truly is never the controller, never the owner. Most people allow pleasure and pain to influence or determine their actions. This is enslavement to the pleasure-pain principle. What's guiding a life lived this way? What's guiding such a life? What is the controlling factor when we live in this way? When we allow pleasure and pain to determine our actions, then we're enslaved by that. That's what's moving us. When we shift to performing righteous actions with a sense of presence and enthusiasm, free from emotional investments in the rewards and expectations, this is freedom, because presence and joy are the nature of the pure self. Living and acting in the world with pure intentions and righteous actions is to live a divine life. It's a life of human maturity. Through a life lived in this way, we will discover the happiness and wholeness that we truly are. There's only ever here and now. The past is in memory. The future is in imagination. But the reality is right now, right here. When happiness is present here, there's only happiness. When happiness is present now, there's only happiness. The self is always only ever here and now. Happiness is the nature of the self. When we realize the pure self, we realize the ever-present happiness and wholeness, the fulfillment that we truly are. It does not and cannot ever come from the world. It is only ever realized within. Like love, happiness is not something that we can get. It's not something we can give. Why? Because it's what we truly are. 100% presence. I'll give you an equation. 100% presence equals happiness, equals pure love, equals knowledge, equals divine union. All of those things are interchangeable. At this stage, in this initiatic process, at this stage of the spiritual journey of unfoldment, we must give up our notion of death. Forget about it. Don't even consider it, not even for a second any longer. We are here for living, not dying. We began our inquiry with death, and we learned that it is a false notion. It seems that the body-mind organism perishes, but as conscious existence itself, nothing is ever born and nothing ever dies. Does existence die? Does intelligence manifesting through the universe ever die? No. So let's remove the idea of death from our reflections. It is an entirely false notion, never allowed to enter your mind, except for reflecting upon it to negate it. Death is a logical impossibility for pure existence. It's a logical impossibility for pure consciousness. It's a logical impossibility for the pure self, what we truly are. So, what's the consequence? What happens when we stop taking life so seriously and at the same time remove the notion of death? What happens when we stop investing our energy and emotions in future scenarios and rewards? What happens when we stop being so egotistically self-serving and self-centered? What happens is we become in tune with the present. Our intentions become pure. Our actions become harmonious and beneficial. Not just to ourselves, but to others as well. To society at large, to nature. We become a guiding light, a steady light of wisdom for others. Through living a dynamic engagement with life, many things will always demand attention. Possessions, obligations, relationships, transactions, these demand our attention. Much of worldly life commands our time and attention. If we ignore these, we risk other misunderstandings. Escapism is never the answer to that. False renunciation that's just escapism in a monk's robe. Active engagement is expected and required. As life demands more from us, worthy actions also increase. Due to these demands on our time and attention, it can be challenging to pursue self-inquiry. An ordained monk living a life of retreat from social convention enjoys the advantage of minimal possessions, minimal obligations, minimal relationships, and minimal transactions. But these demands are also still there for monks. They're just in subtler form, that's all. We can never get away from that. We all must engage with life. So, how to do that? Let selfless intentions and joyful expressions be the highest measure for that engagement. Life is the measure of our spiritual life. The worldly external life is how we measure our spiritual life. So let it be selfless. Let it be joyful. But what's the cure for those following the householder's way, or the way of worldly engagement? Okay. Suppose that we can't, or we're not at a point where inner renunciation is an option for us. Okay. Now we're talking to plan B. We still are afflicted. We're still afflicted by that. So what's the cure for that affliction? Without anxiety, free from worry, do what's necessary selflessly with joy. Live without mental anxiety or preoccupation. Selfless engagement that benefits others is a universal remedy for life's challenges. Along with selfless actions, meditation is also beneficial. In meditation, or we can think of meditation as a form of deep prayer, but meditation is superior to prayer in the sense that we're not creating a division between ourselves and divinity, or ourselves.
So how do you get onto his
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to connect you. He doesn't, yeah, he just shares it with us, which is the point. You keep standing there, and it's just like, no, bizarre. Yeah, but he's got, I mean, I've got all his life. But I'll see how I can share a bit more. But have a divine life, everyone. As Eric says, divine life. See you next one. Or maybe next year. We're back on the 8th, yeah. It's only 2 weeks. Please enjoy your holiday. Yeah, live it to its fullest. Guys, online, much love. And see you. Yeah.
Thanks.
See you, Mel. See you, Callum, Aurelie, and Tony. Much love.